Hello, everyone. So, I just want to follow up giving a little bit more direction on deliberation facilitation. So, you've already had experience, so some of this is not any surprise, and I've already directed your attention to the observation checklist for facilitators. But just to be thorough and just to give it some additional elaboration to those different areas, I want to give this particular lecture that gives you some more nuance and some things that you can be working on as you embark on these next few stages of deliberation training. So starting at the very top, staying neutral on the issues, but still engaging and passionate about the process. So what are we trying to achieve here? So, just to reiterate, I mean, our role is always just to be a servant. We're not trying to take any sides. It's important that we're the ones that help everyone feel heard, keep the conversation going and productive. And this is important. We can care deeply about how the dialogue happens without pushing our own opinions about what the group decides or how they progress through the ideas. And there's also a subtlety here, too, that I want to bring attention to, that we can be neutral, yet still even just like passionate and evocative through our expressions. So as people give responses, we can be excited or, at least engaged in their responses without even then, overshadowing it or flavoring it in any way. And if anything, it's just a validating approach to someone giving their insight, and it gets you excited that people are contributing in a meaningful way. If that makes sense, I hope you can understand that it's a delicate balance, but it is important to be both passionate but neutral. And now, in a related sense here, we are trying to let the participants own the process. Again, we're here to help the group do its best thinking, not to control it in any way. The conversation, it belongs to the participants. We can guide when needed, but when people are working really well together, it's time actually for us to take a step back. If the conversation veers off topic, perhaps, or if it kind of stagnates, of course, we can bring everything back gently into focus, but really in ways that we can approach it as needed, whether we need to very actively kind of get through some of the stalls, or if things are really humming, we got to be patient to just let things kind of unfold organically. Now, again, relatedly, we're trying to keep the group focused but flexible. There is an important thing to consider here as it pertains to what we might perceive as tangents. Sometimes we don't always know what the punchline is to somebody's comment or their contributions. So I would urge you to sometimes just pause, let some ideas organically grow, because creatively, sometimes we need to take little detours to come back in a more insightful or useful way. Now, it'll be really clear, though, when we've fully gotten off the path, and we need a guide, such as yourself, to get us back on the path and toward the goal of coming to some sort of consensus or decision on a particular issue. But I bring this just to your attention that don't always rush in to, kind of squash what we might see as a tangent, because it's possible that it's just kind of an innovative way to kind of getting at the idea and sharing a new perspective. But you just have to use your best judgment there. Okay, carrying on here, managing participation, the group dynamics. This is intuitive, of course, but you'll be recognizing really quickly who's contributing and who's not. And it's tough to kind of coax the people that maybe are a little bit more quiet at first into the conversation, but we need to be creating the space, at least, for them to contribute. So doing little moves like, once someone has given a contribution, again, just creating the space for someone to respond to a particular idea. You can suggest that if anyone has a similar idea or a contrary sort of idea, to bring that into perspective. And then at the last resort, if you've been able to build up some rapport with your participants, I think, you have to you approach it cautiously, but I personally think if you have the right tonality in your voice and you just are genuinely interested in someone's point of view, you can call them in and you can say, so and so, just out of curiosity, do you have anything that you would like to add that is not against the rules? Of course, we want everyone to feel comfortable, and of course, they would have the right to say, like, no, I don't really have it. I'm just listening, they might say, perhaps. But in those cases, don't let that also be the last time that you try. Maybe circle back after a little bit has evolved, and just continuing to check in with people. And then kind of similarly too, there's some people that are going to be very active and participative, and that is fantastic. But managing the flow such that it doesn't get too lengthy, and you might need to use kind of the regulators of your nonverbals to say, I hear what you're saying, but let's see if anyone else has another idea to add to or to go another direction. You'll have to be the one to step in if someone is kind of taking up too much airtime. That's not disrespectful. It's just a part of the ground rules. And if you need to, you can remind people of those ground rules. Okay, carrying on, modeling democratic attitudes and skills. What's cool about this process, and now I've shared it before, but this is the sort of process that's truly at the cornerstone of democracy. And I hope that when people recognize when ideas are coming into contact with one another, and if we're truly approaching it with the spirit of curiosity, that it's not intended to create animosity. It's supposed to just be something that inspires us. And as we all do kind of the democratic skill making of listening carefully, asking thoughtful questions, and importantly, staying curious, it just allows us to respect differences in perspective. And so you yourself, you are modeling that behavior. All right, carrying on here too, we're going to be trying to avoid being the expert. Even if we might know a lot on the issue, it's not our role to be the expert. We actually can remain learners in this process, and I would like you to have that as part of your mindset. Again, your role, you're going to be asking questions, inviting clarification, especially when things like jargon or any sort of things that might be unfamiliar to people might be occurring, and just showing that it's okay not to have all of the answers. Next up here, listening for the underlying values. This one's tough. All right, this one requires you to be thinking a little bit on your feet and trying to peel back the layers of some people's perspectives. As people share, of course, you're trying to synthesize kind of the perspective, the idea itself, the kernel, the nugget piece of information, but it allows you to kind of peel back and think more about what the values, the needs, the experiences that are shaping those viewpoints. And I want you to probe further and try to understand those in greater depth. Again, relatedly here, encouraging deeper reflection. So when strong opinions emerge, just as I've been suggesting, it's important that you probe, invite people to think further. Little questions like, well, what would be the trade-offs? What might be the consequences? What could people live with or not live with? Our role is just to help surface thoughtful reflection. And so if you could have some of those questions that encourage deeper reflection up your sleeve, you can really get somewhere transcendent, somewhere that gets you beyond the fold of the typical way of approaching an issue, right? And then lastly, and this is perhaps the most important, or at least it's what we're really striving to achieve. and that is just looking for common ground. So throughout the conversation, we can help identify points of connection, shared concerns, overlapping goals, mutual values. And here's another thing, too. When tensions might appear, that's when we can encourage the group to explore those constructively rather than avoiding them. In fact, if we see or recognize tension between ideas, that's magic. Lean into the tension, because it's out of tension that insight can really happen. It's not until there is a point and a counterpoint, and when there's this interplay of ideas, that out of it comes meaning. We rely on those tensions to get meaning. It is the process by which meaning is created. Not to get too grandiose there, but don't avoid tension. Lean into tension, at least with curiosity. And again, I'll just reiterate, what are shared concerns? What are overlapping goals? What are mutual values? Those are all pathways to navigating tension. Okay, those are just some of the ways in which I've brought the observation checklist into a more conversational tone here, and I hope it helps. And I want you to listen to this particular lecture just shortly before you do your next repetition of facilitation practice. Okay? So thanks for listening. I hope you're having a great time, and we'll catch up again soon.